A young woman is dropped off at a fast food restaurant, and nobody in her circle sees her again. Weeks later, a gruesome discovery in 2 separate bags. 2 men are arrested, but released 8 months later. A 3rd man is investigated, inculpatory evidence collected, but no arrest is made. What in the hell is going on in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma? My name is M. William Phelps. I'm an investigative journalist and the true crime author of close to 50 books. I've dedicated the past 25 years of my life to helping families of the missing and murdered. Join me. We're crossing the line. It seems to happen more often than at any other time of the year during the fall and spring. There's a simple explanation. With the warmer temperatures spring brings, people are out and about in large numbers after enduring a long, cold, dark winter. Likewise, in fall, hunters head out into the woods to track and kill game, all of which increases the chances they will encounter a body. And I want to give a warning up front here as we get going. This one will have several gruesome details. And this case will frustrate you perhaps more than some of the others I have covered. Oklahoma City in October likes to run between the high 60s and low 70s, offering a comfortable reprieve from a summer of blistering temps in the 90s and even over 100 degrees. Oklahoma City, the capital of Oklahoma, is quite large, somewhere in the neighborhood of 720,000 people. Of course, OKC, as locals call it, holds the distinction for being the place where the Oklahoma City bombing back on April 19, 1995 took place. On that day, anti-government extremists and domestic terrorists, Timothy McVeigh and Terry Nichols, murdered 168 people, many of them children, and injured 684 after driving a truck full of explosives into the Alfred P. Murrah Federal Building downtown. I can recall the day that story unfolded. Watching it on television in horror, knowing there was a daycare center on site, is a memory hard to erase. That bombing is one of those stories, as an American, you watch with your jaw on the floor. You're heartbroken, and you are shaken to the core, wondering how someone can hate something or someone so much, including children. It defies every bit of logic your brain tries to reconcile. On October 13th, 2011, in Bethany, Oklahoma, which is considered part of the Oklahoma City Metropolitan District, a group of animal rescue volunteers are out and back of a downtown grocery store searching. There have been reports of feral cats living around the store, and animal rescue has been called in to set traps and take the animals away. About a month before that October day, back in early September, 19-year-old Oklahoma native Carina Saunders is released from rehab. Carina is an intelligent, beautiful, black-haired, green-eyed Oklahoman with a zest for life. And the one powerful tool Carina had taken with her when she walked out of the doors of recovery, beyond a renewed sense of how precious life is and how we can overcome whatever ails us most, is God. Carina had found what most substance abuse treatment programs refer to as a higher power. She'd realized there was something beyond her own explanation with the authority to change her life. I can kind of relate to this. In my late 20s, I too got sober from alcohol, and luckily have never looked back. Finding a higher power is one of the essential ingredients within that difficult journey. At least it was in my case then. Within a successful sobriety plan, you have to believe there is something other than yourself and your own selfish thoughts and needs that can take away that craving to drink or use dope. Although many people have, you really cannot do it on your own. Carina visits with her mother soon after getting out of rehab, and Carina and her mother start going to church together. Her mother is thrilled that Carina has found religion and given herself over to something greater than a thirst for substances. On her own now, Carina is looking for a place to live, somewhere she can call home. Since being out, she's been staying with friends and also a cousin she is close to. Like many her age, Carina stays in touch with friends and others via Facebook. She doesn't write detailed posts or long diatribes, but she is active on the social media site and uses it to stay in contact with people. During the week of September 28th, Carina lets her friends on Facebook know she is looking for a permanent place to live. She is tired of couch surfing. Born in Oklahoma City and growing up in nearby Mustang, Carina is from a large family with 8 siblings and, her family later reports, 7 grandparents. Called a star student, she had no trouble in school academically, even winning an accounting award given by the state and placing first in several spelling bees, not to mention graduating high school a year early. She made friends easily. She had sung in the choir since grade school and went on to become a member of the honors choir in high school. At one time, she had been training to become an opera singer. In a Facebook post dated September 28th, Carina puts out a simple question. What are y'all up to? There is some indication that she was getting antsy, and some reports claim she had slipped back into old behaviors. I can't say I've seen proof of this in any way, but it has been reported. Look, once you're branded an addict just out of rehab, the go-to and assumption when you become quiet or don't call those in your life for a day or two is that you are using again. The grip addiction holds is tightly wound. I have seen men and women, 20, 25 years clean, allow one simple thought to overcome them, and bang, they dive right back in. I used to tell people I sponsored in recovery, it's your second thought that matters, not the first. What you choose to do after you first think about getting high is what matters most, because we all think about it. That is just natural. Some can talk themselves away from the cliff or call someone, while others allow those overwhelming thoughts to push them over the edge. I have known good people, kind people, big-hearted people with decades of sobriety who went back and never came home. They call it a sleeping dragon inside you. Once you wake him back up, there is no telling what he is going to tell you to do. When Carina's cousin, whom she is staying with in late September, arrives home that night, Carina has a request. Can I get a ride? Carina then explains she is meeting up with someone she knows at a local fast food restaurant. Her cousin says sure. Rockwell Avenue in Oklahoma City is a few blocks west of Bluff Creek Park and Lake Hefner. Like any city of this size, certain sections are associated with hardcore drugs, and it's easy to fall back into that lifestyle with not much going on around you, especially if, once you get clean, you get back with your old crew. Again, I have not seen any evidence that Carina had gone back to her old way of life, but many assume she did and have said so publicly. Let's just say, for argument's sake, she did start using again. I want to point out that, in the scope of my job and what I do, this information would provide us with clues to motivation and suspects, absolutely, but in no way shapes who Carina is as a human being or bears any responsibility for what happens to her next, which is important to note, I think. High-risk lifestyle is a term we hear again and again in true crime, and I have heard it from law enforcement for the past 25 years. Yes, it is true. Some people fall into an abyss and wind up in the presence of dangerous people and a dangerous lifestyle. But that term, I think, still has a bit of victim blaming and shaming attached to it, as if to say, well, if this person would not have hung around that crowd, they might be okay now. You are, in fact, pushing the blame on the victim and taking some of it away from the perpetrator. It's unfair. Someone being strangled by addiction is in no condition to make the best choices. So we don't blame them. Anyway, rant done. Let's move on. Wearing what law enforcement later describes as a white tank top, gray sweatpants, with the word pink across the back side, Carina's cousin drops her off at the Taco Bell on Rockwell Avenue in downtown Oklahoma City, OKC. She steps out of her cousin's vehicle, and her cousin sees her get into a blue, or perhaps maybe gray, she recalls, Chevy Blazer. The guy driving is reportedly 44 years old, so he is quite a bit older than Carina, more than double her age, in fact. And this man has been reported as being a scumbag of the worst type. A sex trafficker grooming Carina for both porn and sex work. Unfortunately, within the drug culture, these types of despicable human beings who give nothing back to the world except pain and misery are everywhere. We'll come back to Taco Bell guy and what he tells police a little later on in the episode. After her cousin watches Carina drive off with this man, Carina disappears from the radar of close friends and family. There is a report of Carina running into a friend from high school at some juncture over the next few days, but that is about it. She is essentially missing. Carina's mother begins posting missing person flyers, aptly called paper ghosts, on telephone poles throughout the city, hoping and praying someone might recognize Carina and call. This tells us something. That her mother had a feeling. This was not some bender Carina had gone on and would soon show up somewhere, apologizing and screaming out for help with her demons. This felt different to her mother. Weeks go by, and as her mother is out one afternoon, still tacking flyers to supermarket windows and telephone poles, a report she hears on the radio grabs her attention. A body has been found in Bethany, just west of downtown OKC. That group of volunteers out trapping feral cats and rehoming them I mentioned in the beginning of the episode had been combing through an area in a field behind a Homeland supermarket. It is now October 13th. As they searched for the cats, volunteers came upon a Nike duffel bag and a laundry bag in a field. The bags were just sitting there. Walking closer to each bag, this incredible, undeniable smell of death becomes overwhelming. Afraid to even get close to the bags, the group decide to phone the police. Let's take a break here. Come right back. More Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps in 1 minute. Inside those 2 bags found on October 13th, 2011, in Bethany, Oklahoma, behind a grocery store, are the dismembered remains of Carina Saunders. Reports I have seen claim that each of her body parts was wrapped in plastic, with her limbs and torso in one bag, her head and neck in another. The medical examiner later estimates that she had been dead for about 3.5 days. Carina's clothing and belongings are missing, along with her feet, hands, sections of her forearms, and her left breast. There is also an indication that she had been bound and tortured before her death. Carina has this tattoo along her upper back shoulder area. The medical examiner finds crude markings from a knife around it, giving the impression that her killer or killers tried to cut and peel the tattoo from her body. Another way, law enforcement presumes to perhaps conceal her identity. I like to think outside the box, as many of you who listen to the show know. So I am not so certain that was the reason for those marks around the tattoo, seeing that Carina's killer had left her head and, quite notably and creepily, cut her hair down to about 3 inches long. So those cuts around the tattoo could be some sort of ritualistic practice, or more likely, torture related. According to the autopsy report, remnants from duct tape were found on Carina's thighs, again, leading many to believe she had been bound by the tape and tortured. All of this is very gruesome, obviously, a crime which required her killer or killers to do the unimaginable. Which I worry as each year passes and true crime becomes more and more ingrained into the collective psyche of the country, when we hear of dismemberment cases, it isn't so shocking anymore. So I don't want to gloss over just how barbaric this crime actually was, and how psychotic the mind of the person behind it has to be in order to kill someone in this manner and then systematically carve up her body to either try to hide her identity or as a ritual, and then package those body parts in plastic wrap before cutting her hair and keeping some of her body parts, and then placing the rest of them into bags and leaving them in a field. This is not a murder most killers could commit. I know that sounds weird, right? You'd have to be present for this sort of crime, meaning fully aware of what you are doing. There are cases, of course, of people dismembering bodies and not having a recollection of doing it. But we're talking about a psychotic break there, or mental illness. But what I worry about as we consume more and more true crime is the idea of becoming desensitized to dismemberment cases. Reports come in that Carina had been asking friends to go with her to Narcotics Anonymous meetings. So we have here the desire on her part to stay clean. Yet the dude whose vehicle she got into after her cousin dropped her off, Mr. Taco Bell, is definitely not one of those people. Carina's cousin gives law enforcement all the details she can about the vehicle and the guy, and they find him fairly quickly. He says that on September 28th, he dropped her off at an apartment building in Bethany after hanging out for a little while. Later, Bethany police take a report from someone seeing this same guy and his wife cleaning blood out of a gray or white SUV during those days before Carina's body is found. Investigators tracked down his vehicle, which Taco Bell guy said he had borrowed from a friend during that time frame when Carina disappeared. They searched that vehicle, even cut out a section of the carpet after an on-site test proves there had been blood on the carpet at some point. All of this seems promising. Yet, when the lab comes back, they cannot confirm those field test results. The only drug found in Carina's system is tramadol, which is not a narcotic. But due to the decomposition of her remains, it's impossible to discern how much tramadol, a pain reliever essentially, she had ingested. A high school friend of Carina's, said to be the last person to see her, ran into Carina in an area close to the apartment complex where Taco Bell guy says he dropped her off. The friend says it was either October 6th or 7th. This seems to line up with what law enforcement uncover in the days and weeks after Carina's body is found, when they lock onto surveillance footage from October 8th, 20 miles outside of Bethany, sending the case into yet another scary and bizarre direction. In that footage, Carina is seen getting into a red pickup truck with what law enforcement says is several men inside of it. And the number I have seen is 4. I find this quite disturbing, honestly. The idea there are several men who had seen Carina and taken off in a vehicle with her, and yet none of them came forward after she went missing, is telling in and of itself. So many things about this case seem to be fragmented and disconnected. It's as if the case could go in any number of directions, and whatever you find in each one of those scenarios could fit into an outcome, which makes these cases the hardest to put together. Just when you think you're onto something, heading toward a resolution, everything lining up for you, you are forced to take the case in an entirely new direction. For example, the guy Carina met at Taco Bell seems to be the number one suspect. The house he lived in most of his life is suddenly sold, and he moves out of state in the months after Carina is murdered. This after reports come in that a tipster, via an email to police, claims to have information that the Taco Bell guy had buried Carina's clothing and the remainder of her remains inside a metal tank on that former property where he lived. So investigators secure a warrant, and for 3 days afterward, excavate sections of the yard where Taco Bell guy used to live. One report claims they were searching for a septic tank, which they never found, but instead dug up a metal tank. Inside that tank, they discover a barbecue grill and a burn pit, a woman's shirt, a pair of sandals, and a jacket. Near those items, a knife. Yet another piece of evidence they get is that there is a cell phone buried on the property as well, a cell phone containing video of Carina's murder. But they never find it. Then, as investigators seem to be scratching their heads, not revealing the results from testing the clothing found on Taco Bell guy's property, a new report from another witness puts Carina in Oklahoma City during those days just before her murder. And this new scenario seems to line up with what happened to her. I'll get to that and the conclusion right after a short break. You are listening to Crossing the Line with M. William Phelps. If you like the podcast, please post about it on social media, tell a friend, or just send me a note letting me know. I'd gratefully appreciate that. Be right back. If you've ever been inside an abandoned home or apartment complex which has become a drug house, it is an experience you will have trouble forgetting. The sense of dread and solitude, with no hope to find anywhere, along with sheer desolation and misery, is palpable and unmistakable. There's almost this post-apocalyptic feeling when you're walking around seeing it all for the first time. In the 3500 block of South Harvey in downtown Oklahoma City, back at the time Carina went missing, there is such a place. Investigators had developed a suspect they knew only as the name Country, which is a nickname you don't hear every day. Turns out the nickname belonged to a 33-year-old dude named Jimmy Massey, who was then linked to a group of meth dealers who were moving large quantities of the drug. So investigators, I would say smartly, focus on Massey's drug dealing and tie him to conspiracy and trafficking charges and drag him in under the pretense of those charges so they can question him about Carina. And so during that interrogation, they begin asking Jimmy if he knows anything about what happened to Carina. After a period of denial and silence during what is a marathon-like interrogation, reports claim Jimmy Massey says this: "I was present when she was murdered and saw it." Investigators then develop another source, a young girl who claims to have been at 3500 South Harvey the night Carina was murdered, witnessed it, and jumped out a window as the murder was taking place to escape the same fate herself. One convincing factor for investigators, they claim, is that Massey says he was there when her arms and legs were dismembered. And at the time he tells them this, keep in mind, police claim these facts had not been made public. A second informant claims that Massey had also written out how Carina's body parts were wrapped in plastic, including very specific details about what product they used. And again, police claim all of that information had not been made public at the time Massey admitted to it. So we have Jimmy Country Massey against now 3 sources and the police. The police claim Massey admitted to witnessing the murder. Then another girl who says she went to 3500 South Harvey with Carina on the night of October 11th steps forward with even more details about what happened. And I might apologize right here to Carina's family for this next part, because it is tragic and graphic, and family members should not have to hear it. Unfortunately, it's part of the case, and I need to report it. Luis Ruiz, a colleague of Jimmy Massey's, this new informant says, was the driving force behind Carina's murder, mostly because his girlfriend was complaining about having to babysit Carina when she was with them and used drugs. Ruiz had allegedly told his girlfriend in the days before Carina was murdered, "Don't worry, she will be dealt with. I have it all planned." When Carina showed up at the house on October 11th, law enforcement writes in a warrant, Ruiz first beat her and then he tied Carina up. From there, the warrant goes on to say, he dragged her upstairs inside that drug house and tied her to a table, and then proceeded to cut off her left foot. But when he tried to cut off her right foot, the saw broke. Someone in the room, the informant says, had Ruiz's phone and made a video of the entire crime. She was certain of this because she had seen the video. In late July 2012, Ruiz and Massey are arrested and charged with first-degree murder. You'd think the case was over. Plenty of witnesses, an alleged admission by one of the suspects, and the murder and dismemberment available on video. But then the charges against both men are suddenly dropped months later by the prosecutor due to what has been reported as a flawed investigation and insufficient evidence. Ruiz files a civil rights lawsuit right away. He claims to have an alibi, which he says he gave to investigators who ignored it. He also claims police used exploitative and abusive interview techniques to coerce his conspirator, Jimmy Massey, into confessing and giving details about the case. The suit also alleges that investigators altered reports when questioned about the facts by the district attorney. City officials and the Bethany Police Department, in a written statement, come out and say they did nothing wrong. Ruiz wins a $50,000 settlement. Not long after receiving that big fat check, Ruiz is stopped for a broken taillight in Oklahoma City, found to be intoxicated, and police then claim to find a syringe, glass pipe, and 6 grams of meth inside his vehicle. A little bit later, Jimmy Massey finds himself doing more time for possession and distribution of meth. Both of the investigators in question were fired after the case against Massey and Ruiz fell apart, but were soon reinstated after they fought for their jobs and got them back. There is a name for all of this: a cluster F. Remember the dig in Taco Bell guy's yard? Keep in mind, all those items discovered were found years after Massey and Ruiz were arrested and charged and let go. Further, in the months before Carina's murder, she had told a friend that 2 guys had beaten her up several weeks before. She never mentioned why or who they were. Also, law enforcement comes out and says that Carina was messaging multiple men at the time of her murder, and they believe her death is the work of a drug and prostitution ring. If that wasn't enough, Taco Bell guy sent a text to one of Carina's family members saying, "I'm going to bury you next to Carina." Between 2019 and 2021, a number of warrants were issued as momentum seemed to be growing toward an arrest. And yet Carina's case, to this day, remains unsolved. I want to thank Michelle G. for sending in this case. It was an important one to cover. Please subscribe to Crossing the Line wherever you get your podcast. And don't forget, leave a review of the show, especially on Apple Podcasts. And log on to crossingtheline.biz or mwilliamphelps.com to contact me and suggest cases, or just say hi. And look for me across all social media platforms using the @ and my name, M. William Phelps. Thank you for supporting this show. I am allowed to do it because of you, and that truly means more to me than I can say. That's it for this week. Be safe, be aware. Sources for this episode include State of Oklahoma versus Jimmy Massey and Luis Ruiz, arrest warrant, July 23, 2012, along with several search warrants connected to the case. 19-year-old murder victim asked for help months before her death. KFOR, News 4, November 8, 2019. Dying for Answers, the Carina Saunders investigation by Lisa Monahan, News 9. Crossing the Line is executive produced by M. William Phelps, LLC, and Matthew Valentinas, Mom's Basement Management. Written by me, M. William Phelps. Audio mastering and mixing by Matt Russell. Music by Epidemic Sound. Original music written and performed by Thomas Mooney, Tom Phelps, and Matt Russell.